Hey everyone, we're just having people joining us, so we'll just wait for another minute and then start. Okay, I think we'll start. Um, no more people in the waiting room. Hi everybody, good morning and welcome to the session. This is we're all meeting here today for the orientation session regarding the Gap Year program, Mind the Gap Year program that we have announced. I'm Asha Cherin. I'm the executive director of Action Endeavors, uh, the organizing team at the Gap Year program. Sorry, we still have people. I'm just going to admit. Yeah. Um, welcome everybody. I hope you're as excited as we are. This is the second edition of the Gap Year program that we've been running. Dakshin Endeavors is actually, we started off in 2019 as an organization focused on experiential education, and that meant mostly outdoor programs, learning expeditions, study tours, and things like that. And our flagship program has been in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, where our sister NGO, Dakshin Foundation, who's also the host organization for this program, has a field station. And that continues to be our flagship program, but considering the situation in the last 1.5 years and continuing, we've had to pivot to online programs, both for our short programs for students as well as, and in fact, that's how the Gap Year program on. We had a lot of students reach out to us, uh, most of them whose future plans for higher studies were deterred because of the travel restrictions and change in, COVID restrictions. In fact, Aparajita is in fact one of such students who's joining us today and ended up being a program participant. That's how the program was born, and we ran one edition last year, and the participants, all of them have very kindly agreed to join us today to share their experience and clarify any questions you may have. Um, that's about the organization. The host organization who we are running this in collaboration with is Dakshin Foundation. It's an NGO that's been working in the space of marine conservation and working closely with coastal communities over the past decade and more beyond. Uh, Both the organizations are based in Bangalore, but we're all operating virtually since the last year and a half. Sorry, I'm taking these breaks to admit people in every now and then. Um, so the combination of the two organizations sort of and Karishma, who I'll introduce shortly, is a representative from the Action Foundation. So the foundation, the NGO, actually works in the space of research and conservation practice in terms of advocacy intervention projects along the coast, east and west coast of mainland India, as well as both the islands, the Lakshadweep Islands and the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. So through the program also you'll go deeper and get to know more about these projects that the organization does, interact with the researchers who are actually working on these projects, leading them over the past couple of years and working in field with the communities. Uh, so yeah, I think at this point I'll introduce Karishma to you. Karishma Modi is here with us. She's an educator and she's a part of the environmental education program at Dakshin Foundation, and she leads the Mind the Gap Year program as part of a collaboration with Dakshin Foundation. And she's going to take you through what the program entails, what to expect, and introduce you to the past students as well. Over to you, Karishma.
Hey, hi everyone. It's really, really nice to see so many of you here. At the outset, I want to just quickly say that the session that we're running today is basically to acquaint you with the Mind the Gap 2021 program and what its differences really are going to be from the last edition that we ran. We also have our alumni here who will talk about their experiences in the program and help you answer any questions that you may have before you do sign up. And so quickly to talk about the features that we have in this edition of the program is that we've restricted our program calendar to 14 weeks. We've kind of amended how from the last year, how people could possibly have extensions or work longer periods. And what we're hoping to do is that after these 14 weeks of engagement directly with the Mind the Gap program, if you have a particular interest in conservation and the work that Dakshin Foundation does, we could help you write to and get in touch with people within Dakshin Foundation with whom you could take up deeper engagement and more work. There's going to be a mix of sessions that will help you understand the context, the work, the research that goes on in Dakshin Foundation, and projects and activities that will help you explore this for your own understanding in various ways. The key difference really, like I said, is the duration. So our alumni here have had the option of being with the program right from 3 months to the longest, which is 9 months. But the thing is, we noticed that we had a lot more. We had a lot more to offer if we were to condense the program down to 3 months and offer it the same across the board to the people who are signing up. So this is what I'd like to say specifically as the differences. And you've all received the brochure and you've all had the chance to go through the brochure, which will give you in detail what the components are and what we're aiming to develop through the course of this program. So without much ado, I would like to introduce our alumni. So we've got Aprajita Jairam. She had just finished her A-levels when she joined the Mind the Gap program in 2020. She's had experience in conservation, community work, and she was working throughout the duration of the program. And she did it without any apparent compromise to her participation levels. So Aprajita, through her active engagement with the content and her participation, she kind of showed that you do have to manage both. And I think she'll be able to share experiences about multitasking and time management. So, hey, Aprajita, nice to have you here. Avi was also with us for the duration of the Gap Year program. So Avi Mittal is an architect who joined us in the Mind the Gap program 2020. While she continued to work, she definitely also has insight into time management and multitasking and the requirements, how to take care of both. She's been interested in solving problems of interaction between communities and their spaces. And she's like her work, even leading up to the Gap Year program, was about solving these spatial interaction issues. Avi brought a wide range of interests and abilities to her time with the Mind the Gap 2020 program. And so she'll have insights also into how you can bring varied interests and skills into the program and give it your own added kind of dimension that's very personally yours into your program experience. Hey, Avi, it's So nice to see you here with us. Um, Nishant Sharma has been our youngest participant in the Mind the Gap 2020 program. He completed his class 11 requirements, and he will wrap up work with us as formerly a class 12 student. So he's had to make a consistent effort to manage both commitments. So you can also talk to him about what it's like to manage school coursework as well as the program related work. He started out as being completely captivated by the ecology and the biology side of conservation. And he has active experience volunteering with conservation organizations. Over the course of the program, though, he developed
There's a
something we
lag at
could also.
Kashma's end. Kashma, there was a lag at your end.
Whoops. Can you hear me clearer now?
Yes.
Okay. So I was just talking about Nishant. When he started off, he was extremely captivated by the biology and ecology side. But over the course of the program, he developed a measure of interest even in communities, people, and communicating about research. About is the opportunities to explore the other point of view. Hey Nishant, it's nice to see you here. She's a graduate in geography with a minor in journalism, and she came to the Mind the Gap 2020 program with a wide experience in conservation, photography. Ria has now been accepted into a master's program at the Terry University, and she used the platform and the network that she built steps could be in the world of conservation. So, hey Ria, hi, it's so nice to see you here. Finally, definitely last but not definitely the least, Suraj was also already a climate change and sustainability activist before he came to the Mind the Gap 2020 program. He founded and leads multiple organizations working towards sustainability. In the context of the Mind the Gap program 2020, Suraj Gupta was able to explore the relationships between conservation goals on the one hand and sustainability and climate change goals on the other hand. And I think he's a key person to talk to about how those two areas intersect and diverge. So, hey Suraj, it's so nice to see you here. So
Kashma, there's a lag again at
hey,
your end.
I think I'm going to switch video now that you've all seen my face for a considerable amount of time. And I'm going to just keep voice on. So what we have here is a mix of folks who have been in, who have engaged with conservation and wildlife work in a variety of ways. Some more with the community angle in mind, some more with the ecology angle in mind. And all of them will be able to answer your questions about the sort of projects we do and the work that has happened in the Gap Year Program 2020. So now I'm just going to ask them to share a few bits of their experience based on three key questions. So one of the key questions that we'd like them to answer is what their challenges were during the program, because of course, like I said, many of them were, all of them were multitasking and allocation and things like that. So challenges abounded. Whether and how that challenge was addressed in the program as a part of it. And I also want them to share one highlight, and it could be anything. This highlight doesn't necessarily need to be content or program related, but one highlight from the experience of the program. So Aprajita,
Sorry, Karishma, just to add to that, while this is happening, if any of you in the audience have questions, either specific to a person as they're speaking or in general to any of us, you can just drop it in the chat and I'll have them addressed at the after all of them are done speaking. So feel free to drop in your questions as you go.
Super. So Aparajita, over to you, and I'm going to be on mute.
Okay, great. So, hey everyone. So like Karishma said, I was actually working a full-time job while I was participating in the program, and I think the biggest challenge for me was kind of trying to balance my time between doing all the work that I had to do for my job and also the work that was involved with this program. But also I think Karishma, Asha, and Deepti are just like, they're really great educators, I think, and they look at it very holistically. So they were very, very accommodating of it. They always ensured that all of us were in the right headspace to learn more and to develop like really important skills, which I really, really appreciated. And as to what the highlight for me, well, I have two actually. So the first one would be they kind of pushed us to look at conservation from multiple perspectives. They taught us that if you want to work in conservation, you have to be able to look at every issue from a very inclusive set of lenses. And the second highlight, I'd say, were the people I met through the program. They're just great. They're amazing, and they make amazing friends.
Oh, Avi, could you go next? I'm like overwhelmed with emotion right now. Thank you, Prajita.
Yeah, thank you, Prajita. Hi, everybody. I hope you're all doing well. So, Karishma did introduce me really well. I'm glad that you think so nicely of me. So, yeah, I feel that joining this program was one of the best decisions I've made. And I'm not saying this to just promote the program, but genuinely it has not only from the education point of view, but I think it has changed my perspective about so many things. Like, we notice things but we just ignore them, but after taking this program, I think my perspective has changed about a lot of things. Not only does this program give you an adventurous tour on biodiversity and environment, it lets you explore so many different subjects and topics like sociology, geography, history on its way. So this program has guided me to sort of discover not only what surrounds me, because that's something that we're always aware of, but what I surround in terms of impact, you know. So of course, there were many challenges, some unrelated to the course, like, you know, taking out time, dedicating time for the course while working, and some related issues like understanding the root cause, thinking of how I can solve a problem or at least try to reduce the impact of it. But I think the biggest challenge that I faced was choosing between BRM and CWE and EE. So because I chose the latter, because as an architect, I felt that um, ECWE relates to my field sort of a little better. But at the same time, I sort of had this fear of missing out. Although, you know, our facilitators ensured that we get the best of both worlds. We had multiple combined sessions where I could sort of take a peek through the door and see what's happening on the other side. So yeah, I mean, it was a great experience, and I cannot go without mentioning that the program content is extremely diverse and relevant. And the sessions are very educational, interactive, and the tasks are creative and they're tailored to our abilities, basically, comfort and understanding. So I think I was able to express myself not just in one way, but multiple ways, whichever way I was comfortable with. But the highlight, the cherry on the cake, I would still say, is the interaction with the facilitators and the fellow gappers, which I still miss a lot. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Avi. I'm again overwhelmed, and I think it's going to be a morning of that. I also wanted to clarify, because Avi did bring up this very, very important point about having to make a choice between one track and the other. So this was a part of the program in 2020, and after collecting the experiences of our alumni, we've realized that maybe that choice isn't necessarily the best experience to put everyone through. So for the 2021 edition, we'd like to ensure that everyone gets to participate in all of the programs that Dakshin Foundation runs. So it's going to be a lot more, like Avi said, it's going to be a lot more holistic in that sense. Thanks so much for that, Avi. So you know who's going next.
Hi, I'm Ishan, and I think the best part of the program that I liked the best was the way it was structured. Because in the beginning, you have these sessions where people from Dakshin Foundation come and teach you about what they do at the organization, and then they use the projects as a segue to teach you actual content and theories from the field of conservation. And then after that, you do your projects where you get to apply all this theoretical knowledge, and you get to make something of your own. And then finally, so our project, we did a group research paper, and we were able to present it to the Dakshin Foundation head director,
Director.
and that was like a good way to end our project, because it was like a culmination of everything that we've done so far. So I really like that. As everyone's already said, I think the biggest challenge for me was balancing schoolwork and um, production work. It wasn't just like about like finding the time to work on production projects, but also I had like online school. And I think the way that was solved was that Asha and Karishma and Deepti were really flexible about like when we had our sessions. So usually they were in the evening when I could attend it and when I wasn't in online school. And I really liked that they were really flexible about the timing. So that was how I solved it.
Thanks, Nishant. Again, just to draw out the differences between 2020 and 2021, another point that we've tried to, like Nishant said, there is a circular sort of process between learning about something and coming up with a project. Because we've made this a 3-month offering now, we're trying to keep those content and project circles tight. So there will be some amount of immediate work on a long-term project that happens while the sessions, through the duration of the sessions themselves. I'm sorry, this is a happy, overwhelming morning, so I'm kind of stumbling on my words. And then there'll also be the continuing aspect of the project. So you start working on it bit by bit in the session weeks, and then you add to it as and how the 14 weeks progress. So that's one difference. And we are going to set down some, times so that we try and reach maximum number of people at that convenient time. And Asha again will, it's all in the brochure this time. So if you would like to go through the brochure again, that would be helpful. So yeah, over to you, Ria.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm Ria. I did the Mind the Gap Year program between my bachelor's and master's, and it really expanded my knowledge and perspective on wildlife conservation. So the highlight for me was interacting with a lot of new people and experts. And what was challenging for me was some sessions we used to have these simulation exercises, and it really put you on the spot. But the great thing was that we used to constantly have reflections and feedback sessions. So yeah.
Thanks, Ria. I'm glad to hear that the reflection did help. And this is something we look for mindfully in our experiences, is that it's not just about attending a session, or it's not just about participating in an activity. You get to come back and talk about the things that worked and didn't work for you. And while that helps us with supporting you during the program, we also believe that it helps you develop skills to support yourself if you're in a difficult activity or a difficult project. So thank you so much for drawing attention to that. Suraj, thank you so much. You're up next.
Hi everybody, I'm Suraj. Just like Aprajita, I'd finished my A levels before like I joined the program and I was in my gap year. To be honest, I never really had too much of a challenge with time management because I was not doing anything at that point of time. So I was just doing this program. But one of the challenges I did face coming into the program was the perspective that I address conservation with. I wasn't too drawn to conservation because I didn't have the background for it initially. Because I not studied too much in 10th and 12th grade with biology and stuff like that, and because my experiences with climate activism didn't revolve around conservation, so I didn't know what I was getting into. But the moment I started the program, the first month and so, like I was completely taken aback in the sense that of how diverse the topic really was. I thought that it was only about, science and that sort of lens, but understanding the social part behind it and the human part behind it, um, I think that was, I would say, really, it changed my focus and paradigm around conservation, and it really made me enjoy learning what we were doing at the program. The reason for that actually was why that happened was because of the I don't know, the what do you call everyone who teaches at the program. So they were very open about things. Like everything was very friendly. Everything was very like I could like one thing I learned from is I ask a lot of questions, and they never were hesitant about anything. I could have a good conversation with them about anything. So I think that was my highlight from the program. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much, Suraj. Um, yeah, I think again the dialogue that emerges through these interactions with people who are in the field, working, researching. I think it it does create a space for a lot of questions, and I'm very happy to say that all our gappers asked a lot of questions, and there was a lot of conversation in and around the sessions. And I think as far as I know, the conversation even spilled over to after sessions. We'd have our WhatsApp chats going, and there'd be a lot of like sharing resources, and there'd be a lot of just trading perspectives. So I think thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us, because it also brings together all of these other.
Karishma, not to put you on the spot, but I was wondering if you could also answer the questions from the perspective of a facilitator, uh, just to
No,
sort
thank
of
you.
share
Yeah.
that.
You haven't
Yeah.
put me on the spot at all. Thanks so much. In fact, I think it's good that Asha, you brought this to light. So I think if I were talking about the challenges and the factors that mitigate challenge, the biggest challenge I would personally draw from the last year's experience was trying to make sure that the sessions remained relevant to the individuals in the programs in the program. And I feel like the factor that helped us as facilitators mitigate and overcome these challenges were again that the resource people are extremely experienced, and they're all coming with a lot of they know how to do problem solving and troubleshooting in their domains. It's not that they're just experts in the technical side of it, but they also have the soft skills, understanding, and what do you need as other technical skills. So the challenge of making the content relevant was definitely answered by the people that we have coming in as facilitators, because they bring a wide range of knowledge and experience to the sessions. And I think my highlight, although it seems like like a low point in the sense for some of our participants, was definitely the Jan Sabha kind of activity that Deepthi ran so well. It put a lot of people from this current alumni group on the spot, but I think as a facilitator, it offered me a lot of insight about how I could individually reach out to each participant and what they needed in that point in time, and what they thought was working for them and what was not. So although it was like a turbulent sort of experience where everyone was uncomfortable, I think it led to a lot of stronger understanding of each other through that one activity. So the highlight was the most turbulent activity in our calendar. Okay, wait. Hey, sorry, Asha. That's my highlight from BRM because as lead educator, I get to say two things. My highlight from my own program, where I was working with Avi in environmental education, was the fact that Avi and I got to design posters around education awareness, and the process of going like back and forth over design, trying to understand what metaphors we can use to talk to people in various social groups, in various like, can we talk to children differently? Do we talk to parents differently, teachers differently? And the fact that Avi and I then had multiple spillover conversations, like they were not even related necessarily to poster making. They were just like, why does discipline play such an important part in schools? And we talked about it. We talked about it for like over an hour. So these, yeah, I get to say one is lead educator and I get to say one is my program. So. Asha, do you want to open the floor for questions?
Yes. I think if anyone in the audience has a question, they can either, actually we're a small enough group for you guys to ask your questions directly. Y'all can unmute and if possible, switch on your video so we can see you and shoot any questions you may have. Anybody? Nobody? No questions?
Shall I ask one, Asha?
Sure.
So this is a question that's really open to anyone who wants to answer it among the alumni. And I wanted to ask you that you've heard these differences, right, between your intake, that is 2020 and 2021. What do you think of the differences? And the reason I'm asking this is because there's significant changes from how it happened when you were with us. So does this make you want to do it again?
Can I answer that first?
Sure, Suraj, go ahead.
I think it's really good because of the fact that you don't have to choose between programs. I remember when we had to make our choice with BRM and stuff. Aprajita, I and Nishant were having a talk, and we were very conflicted because everything was so interesting, and we wanted to do like one thing but also the other. Eventually, we all went to BR. Like I think we went to BRM, right? But we really wanted to pursue the education part of it because, again, seeing how messed up education is with the environment normally in India, we wanted to see how things work on the ground and stuff like that. So I think it's really good that, I think if I'm not wrong, that they can do all three of them this time, right? And doing
So,
that, sorry,
yeah, go on. No, go on. Finish.
and doing that work in 3 months, I think is nothing short of like, for me, that's like it steals the deal. Like that's what like finishes it. Yeah.
So just for everyone here, BRM and CWEE are the initials for Dakshin Foundation's various programs. So BRM is biodiversity and resource management. CWE is community well-being and environment, and EE is environmental education. And largely they fall on two ends of a spectrum where BRM kind of really deals with the biodiversity and resource management. So it's about the ecosystem and the organisms and how those organisms are perceived as economic gain and like all of those things. So there's a lot about sustainable fisheries. There's a lot of work around the sea turtle tracking, monitoring, and all of those projects happening in BRM. Environmental education and community well-being and environment are completely about people. And they're all about making sure that possibly the research that happens on the one end gets transferred across to the people and communicated to a variety of people on the other. And so they end up becoming like biology, ecology on the one end of the spectrum, and community and people on the other end of the spectrum. And last time we wanted an element of specialization, and we wanted an element of people choosing one and then immersing themselves in that program. But we heard these stories of FOMO, which are absolutely 100% like they resonate. And I also, as a facilitator, felt like, oh, I wish that this group would get to do this thing, and that like from across the aisle, the other group would get to do the former. So there was a lot of that when we decided that in this 3-month edition, we'd make sure that
and
everyone
also for students who are still trying to figure out where their interests lie and what is it that is really pulling them towards conservation as a broad idea, which is not really taken form entirely. It's cruel of us to really split them and have to make them choose, which is why we've taken that feedback into consideration and put together a wholesome program that doesn't need you to make that choice at such an early stage.
Yes.
So you sort of get exposed to all aspects of conservation. The only difference being that last year we didn't really call ourselves focused on marine conservation, but this year we're saying that we are, because we understand that 3 months, although sounds like a lot, when it comes down to it, it really isn't much. And I think the students here will vouch for that fact. It just goes, in no time. And then we really had so much planned for those 3 months, which we realized was not practical, especially given the online platform model. So we've sort of put together a more realistic schedule and breakdown of projects and assignments and reading and live sessions. So it's been an iterative process for us as well, and that's probably how we've evolved into what it is this year.
So I'm looking at the question that's come up in chat. And since it's a question about the long term, I'm not going to ask any one of you at this point, alumni, to put yourself on the spot and think long term, but I'm going to answer it more from an education and educator's point of view. So for me personally, as an educator, the skills that I build into the program in the design and in execution with, of course, with input from all our resource people. So right here, Deepti and I and Asha together work in also professional development goals for young people coming into conservation. So maybe the learnings about conservation itself may not stand the test of so many years, intervening years, because conservation practices change, contexts change, so many things undergo drastic and dramatic change. But the things that we personally believe in that will carry forward into even these uncertain kind of years are the professional skills, the reflective skills, and possibly the ways in which you can engage with critical thinking about these concepts, because a lot of times there's a lot of black and white in the official narratives about state conservation or any of the other, like education, right? There's a lot of black and white about what education is and is not. But those definitions may change 10 years, 20 years from now. But how you can critically unpack a topic and think it through and come up with solutions, those skills can last through those intervening years.
Karishma, if you don't mind, I would like to add something. So again, like, I am not sure if this is going to be the same 20 years down the line, but I'll tell you what I have felt about this. And honestly, before attending this program, my definition of sustainability was very restricted and limited to certain things. And after completing this program, I realized that there are so many things that I have just been ignoring, which also are a part of sustainability. or a sustainable environment or anything of that sort. It sort of completely changes your perspective about how you look at things. Like today, if I have to talk about sustainability, I'm not just going to talk about not cutting trees or using green materials while building. I'm probably going to include uh, us in it, in the sense that we live in cities and we completely ignore what's outside of our borders. And I think that like education, earlier I used to think that it's not a part of sustainability, but now I feel that it is. And I feel that the program just sort of lets you explore so many different aspects of sustainability, and sort of gives you that prerogative to choose between so many different things which you probably never even knew about before are a part of sustainability.
Can I
Yeah.
please add on to that, like one
Sure.
very small answer? Yeah. So sustainability as a field is very evolving in terms of the ideas that always come up in it. It's very contemporary. There's always things like that's changing, and there's always things that you need to know. So the ideas and concepts taught in the program for me, it really helped me. Like what I learned there is now helping me seek opportunities with sustainability and what I'm pursuing in that field right now. Especially so if you guys are looking to go in this whole climate slash environment field, it's very important to understand some fundamental ideas that always keep evolving. So one thing I learned a lot was about how marginalized communities and how indigenous communities are affected by the current environmental scene, and how they play a very integral role with this whole climate argument and this whole climate action movement. And the fact that I learned that at the Dakshin program over I think 2 or 3 sessions in great detail is now because it's now why I'm pursuing something in that area with a new project. So these ideas will constantly be with you. So if you're going down the line of sustainability like for 20 years on, I think it's fundamental to understand these concepts so they stick with you and they help you understand your opportunities later on. Yeah.
Yeah, and I also, one more point that I just forgot to mention is I've taken a lot of sustainability courses online. And let me tell you, the kind of interaction that you will have here, you are not going to find it anywhere. And I mean, you'll find all kinds of information, but it's only the input part in that, right? Here you're getting the input and there is an output, and because of that, only because of that, you learn so much more and so much better. That's what I feel personally. So yeah, thank you.
Avi, just to add to that, I would say that a lot of your experiences that you had and what the coming batch will experience is going to be because of the peer-to-peer interaction. So when we say something, there's Suraj who has something to add to it. There's a Prajita who has something to add to it, either from their experiences or from what they've learned. And it's that engagement that has really, from what I understand, Avi, what you just said, it's that engagement that has really brought out this conversations and that go beyond a structured session.
Fully second this.
I think we've had two questions regarding the timings of the session. So last year, in fact, we did want to stick to a structured specific timing, but one, because the batch size was small enough for us to actually send out a message. So like Nishant said, he had school, so it sort of became a thing that we will have all our sessions after 3 o'clock in the afternoon, because he had school. So if the group remains as small, we're still unsure of what the batch size this year will be like. We're hoping the batch size is larger, but we don't know what it's going to be like. So if it's a manageable crowd, we are more than happy to go through the process of reaching out to people and actually taking their timings into consideration before we fix on a program. But ultimately, it really boils down to the timing of availability of the resource persons, because a lot of them are either working in the field, or they are professors at say IISc or APU, Azim Premji University. So these are people who are teaching or have working in any of the organizations in conservation. So it really is a combination of availability, their availability, and the students, where we can. And the idea of trying to put down a time is so that students can plan ahead. And that's one of the feedback we received from the previous batch, that, having a knowing that this is when the program sessions are going to be could help us plan our other commitments in advance. So that's the reason we have tried to give specific timings. But if we're able to work out something that's more flexible and works for the others, we are willing to do that legwork for you. So I hope that answers your question.
I want to add one disruptive piece, is that I also want to thank the alumni of 2020, because they were extremely accommodating of each other's schedules. And there was from the get-go, I think what really worked for us also as organizers was the fact that each member of the group was also communicating and building their own personal communication channels and checking with each other and making sure that there was consensus on many things. So yeah, just because as the education side of it, there's also that relationship building that happens while checking for each other's convenience. So that's all. Do each of you want to take up Nikita's question and answer about what you worked on? So here, Avi, Nishant, Riya, you could definitely share.
I did the 9 months. I'm still doing.
Yeah.
And so other than the research paper, I'm currently working on an article about habitat fragmentation and how that impacts the leatherback turtle nesting sites in the Andaman Islands. And I'm also working on website development. So there's this website called Sea Turtles of India. I'm doing a similar thing except with sea snakes, because it's a very data deficient species. And so I'm contributing to developing a website about spreading awareness about the species in India specifically.
Thanks, Nishant.
Yeah. So yeah, so we did posters, we did concept notes. We also had sort of debates, discussions. There are so many things. I feel that the rest of the online courses, you just sort of get a lecture, and then you get an assignment where you have to answer the questions, and then you can just sort of judge yourself based on that. But here I feel that all of the tasks were extremely interactive, and if somebody is not comfortable with a lot of text, the facilitators made sure that we get videos or maybe draw, or that sort of comfort level was there in the way we wanted to express ourselves. So that's the kind of thing that I was talking about.
Riya?
I definitely became better at Canva. That's for designing posters. And also it's like Karishma and I were discussing how if I ever need to do my dissertation work, it becomes easier for me to approach someone at Dakshin for supervision. So like networking.
That's definitely a soft output, yes.
Yeah.
Asha?
Yeah, I just have one thing to add, that again, based on the feedback that we received from the alumni batch, we've sort of redesigned this year's program in a way that it's not all sessions towards the beginning and then a project at the end, which is the reason we've sort of tried to intertwine the projects as we go. So once we finish a certain topic or a major part of the program, then we have one project or an activity for you to do, and then move on to the next in a way that the interactive parts of the program, you don't have to wait for it till the very end. So that's just something that's different from the last batch, and will be a different experience for the coming batch. I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, that's about, same thing that I wanted to say. You want to take the
There's
final
also a question about the criteria for applications. We don't really have a criteria for applications. In fact, we're just trying to look at what it is that you expect out of such a program. What are your other commitments at the moment, and where is your interest in the program coming from? And I really want to reiterate that this is not a program for those who've for only those who've decided to do something in the space of environment, conservation, wildlife, natural sciences, social. It need not be. And that's the reason we accepted someone like, say, Anavi, who's an architect by profession. And I can see today, and I've seen over the course of the program, how it's affected her. So it's you may have some inclination towards conservation. You may have been part of a club back in school, or you've heard of these climate change conversations, on social media, and somewhere it has ignited an interest in you, and you'd like to know more. So we are more than happy to have these conversations and have you as part of the program, regardless of your intent to pursue it from a career perspective. And that's something to keep in mind. We're not looking at it as an introduction for you to get into this as a career prospect. We do have a session at the end of the program where we have various representatives from organizations beyond the NGO space who are working in conservation from a for-profit sector as well. And that's for you to get a sense of what are the different avenues in which you can pursue should you want to. But that's really not the sole intended outcome of the program. We'd just like you to understand these things and have a more realistic picture, because often we want to know, but we really don't know what's the right source of information, and there's only so much Google can tell us, right? So the program is really trying to bridge that gap, provide an opportunity and facilitate conversations between practitioners and students who'd really like to know more about this. So that's just something I wanted to add to that point.
Yeah, I think Karthik is asking about the process and planning of the program and how to move forward with it, like how to become a part of the program is what I understand from asking him.
I can take that. So basically, today's session was to give interested students an opportunity to ask some questions and speak to the alumni, because that was a request we got last year, and because it was our first edition, we didn't have an alumni. This year we had, and we asked them, and they very kindly agreed to come in and talk to you guys. So that's the reason we have today's session. Today's session is not in any way mandatory for you to apply, but we have a link. I can post the link on the chat anytime now. So it's a simple process. It's a Google form. We need you to fill in a few questions and upload an SOP, which is a statement of purpose. And the idea, again, the SOP is really only intended for us to get a sense of where you stand, what is it that is really driving you towards the program, and to get a sense of what is your perspective on all of these things. It isn't in any way a criteria. We're not really, selecting one over the other based on any of this. It's to gauge the suitability of the program for where you stand at the moment. And if we see that this is really a misfit, maybe you're already a graduate in a concerned topic. So if you already have if you're a graduate in environmental sciences or marine biology, for example, then this program really doesn't suit you because you already know most of what we're trying to cover here. So that's what we want to just check through the application. Not really, it's not a really stringent process of whether or not I will make it through. That's really not what it is. So we really want anyone who joins in to get what they really want out of it. And if that works, then we're more than happy to have you on board. Um, and just to take a look at the diversity of the small batch of 5 students we had last year. We've had somebody who's in the 11th grade. We've had 2 of them who finished their 12th, which was, finishing 12th was the actual intended audience. We have 2 of our 3 students, 5 students from that age group. And we had 2 students who had finished graduation and who were actually working. So the difference in all of this is that they are all in different stages of your studies or work, but the commonality was that you had an interest and an inclination towards conservation, but you didn't really have a very specific direction. So regardless of where you are, we're accepting applications from students who've completed graduation but in a field that's completely unrelated to conservation, and you've realized that you have an interest and you'd either want to understand how to diversify it into conservation as a career, or be inclusive of conservation perspectives in whatever it is that you're currently doing without having to start anew. So these are all various possibilities that you may be at, and these are all possibilities that we're open to as applicants.
So just before we wrap up, Aryaman has a question about whether this program offers the sort of backing it takes to enter conservation, even though you don't have a background in science. I want to give a one-line answer, but if anyone here in this group wants to correct me, please let me know, okay? So my one-line answer to this is that over the course of the program, we'll help you develop your particular niche in which we can then possibly channel you towards people who may need your skill set or your personality type, or your inputs that you would possibly bring to conservation from our network, our professional networks. And we are able to then patch through these connections. So it may not become like a certificate that you get from an institution like a college.
You do get a certificate.
You get a certificate, yeah.
But it's not an institution. We're not an institution or university and things like that. What it can is give you the background and perspective to make a decision on where you stand about these things. How serious are you about pursuing it, or either now, or okay, I'm going to park this for now and then pursue this later, or this has changed my perspective as an engineer. How can I be more conscious of these concepts, continuing to be an engineer, not like I want to leave all of this and go up for an NGO. That need not be your stand at the end of it. So there are multiple ways in which this can affect your life, and you'll have to just go through it and see what happens.
Can I say something?
Yes,
so,
please.
I dropped science in like 8th grade, so I haven't done science since 8th grade. But I've still managed to actually do a lot of work in conservation. I've done a bunch of internships in conservation, and even this program, like even I was worried that because I didn't have a background in science, especially because I chose the BRM, and because it was so science based, I was afraid I wouldn't be able to manage it. But I think it's quite okay. It's the things you learn, you will end up applying no matter where you go. So
yeah, I think at the stroke of 12 we seem to be done.
Any other questions? Does the alumni have anything to say?
Like any hacks you want to share, like cheat codes, cheat sheets, mischief managed?
Yeah.
I think like with what Aprajita said about not having a background, if you are like this is I think specifically, but also like if you're just getting into sustainability, like everything is connected. You don't need to have a background in the end. Like because I didn't know anything about conservation either, but like you see these intersections happening in front of you, so it's very easy to put together once you like understand what's happening and you pay a little more attention to it. So not having a background for me wasn't a problem. So yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, you can't do conservation without having to do at least a little bit of socio geography and a bunch of other subjects. So you will find a way to apply what you've learned in conservation.
I have put the link to apply for the program in the chat. I hope all of you also have a copy of the brochure, which also has the link. It's a fairly straightforward Google form that you can fill in your details, upload an SOP, which is the only bit of work on it. And like I said, it's more for us to get an idea of where you stand rather than a screening process as such. So I hope I'm just going to put this. I just realized I sent it on a private chat. Yeah. So I hope we've been able to clear your doubts. If there's anything, we still have some time. If you have any questions, else we can wrap this up. Karishma.
I'm in fact happy to even answer questions on email if you think of something
Sure.
before
Yeah.
it is deadline time. So I'm just going to put my email in the chat as well.
There's also the email ID from which you must have received the brochure and
Yeah.
email from me. That's also an email ID that you can reach out to at any time.
Yeah, I think overall, in the interest of keeping things short and sweet, I'm really grateful to all the 5 of you for coming here and sharing your experience, because I think it added that much more authenticity and value. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Asha, Deepti.
Thank you guys for coming, both to the alumni, to Deepti and Karishma for joining us, and to the audience. I really hope we've been able to clarify most of your doubts, and I would request you to also share it with people within your networks. We're a really small organization with still building our base on social media, and we've reached out to a couple of your schools as well. I'm not sure if that's how you've landed here today or through our social media. So it'd be great for any way you can reach out to your networks, who you have students, friends who you think might be interested in the program. Please feel free to share this with them. We're accepting applications till the 19th, which is next Monday. And we start on the 26th and will go on for the next 14 weeks. So really hope to see most of at least some of you apply and join us this year. All right.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Asha.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.